And then in the evening he come back. I said, what happened? You left, you look. He said, yeah, but you know, Mother Devi Shakti, he saw me, he catch me and he preached me and she brings me back here.
Who's that?
Do you remember who?
No, I don't remember who.
Krishnamurti.
Who?
Krishnamurti.
Krishnamurti. Oh, the same Krishnamurti who comes here.
Yeah. He told me story long time ago, yeah. No, because he told me, we went to the States, what happened? He said, where I was going and, you know, Mother Devi Shakti saw me and she preached me, you know, to the top of the car. Then she brings me back there. Like you said, you know, they said that she may get so many devotees, but then he also brings so many devotees who they left, they bring back to them. So you remember who was? You remember that?
I don't know names.
Okay.
I would just, because with the boys, you don't, what's your name, you know, you just talk to them, that's all. Whatever happens, once they're in the brahmachari ashram, you never see them again, so that's the way it was. And they looked different in those days too. So after joining the temple in May, because of course all the temples were very small. How many devotees were in the Tucson temple? Yeah, 4 devotees, right? And there were 4 devotees in the Philadelphia temple also. So the minute you walked in the door, you had to learn everything. And usually the first thing they taught you was how to wash the pots and make chapatis and all. And then the next day they teach you how to do arti and lead Mangal arti. And so it was very fast training because they needed devotees. So we had to do everything really fast. And within a month they told me, all right, now you have to write to Prabhupada, get initiated, because Prabhupada was setting up the world headquarters. Did you ever go to Los Angeles in those days? Yeah. What year? 72, yeah. So Prabhupada had this arrangement that he was staying there in Los Angeles. They moved now to the beautiful Watsika Avenue temple. And maybe they moved a little after, I don't remember which year it was. But he would have the temple presidents come there, he would have the pujaris come there, and they would get trained up by and the Sankirtan leaders also. But it was 3,000 miles away from Philadelphia, so it was very, very long distance. So, and the devotees, there were so few devotees, so I just stayed there in Philadelphia because I was born there, I knew so many people and schools, and that way we were able to preach more. So during that summer in July was the Rath Yatra in San Francisco. But that particular Rath Yatra, there were some, what you could nowadays, they're called terrorist groups. Like there were the Black Panthers. And they threatened that if Prabhupada came to the Rath Yatra, they would kill him. So the devotees were very worried for Prabhupada. And usually Prabhupada would sit on the Rath cart and he'd be right there with the Sankirtan and giving the lecture. But instead of allowing Prabhupada to do that, because they were so scared he would be killed, they drove him this way, that way, and Prabhupada couldn't understand why they weren't taking him to the Rath Yatra. And he got very disappointed. And other problems were there also. There were misunderstandings in the philosophy. Some devotees were saying that Prabhupada was actually Krishna. So, because the devotees were all quite new, and they didn't quite have a grasp on the philosophy, so Prabhupada was becoming disappointed in America. And at that time, this was told by Brahmananda and also by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Prabhupada was there in the Los Angeles temple and he was standing taking darshan of Rukmini Dwarkadish one day. And Dwarkadish said to Prabhupada, now I want you to go back to India. So Prabhupada objected. He said, my Guru Maharaj told me to preach in the West, in English, and my godbrothers are there in India preaching. And Dwarkadish told him that, no, I want you to go back and I want you to make a temple there. And that temple will be 100 times better than this temple. So at the end of July, Srila Prabhupada left, and he took a few devotees with him. He went first to Hawaii. He took the Pacific route. First Hawaii, then Japan, because he had sent Sudama and Chintamani to Japan to make a temple there in Tokyo. And then finally he came to Calcutta. And he had a plan. Prabhupada didn't know where Dwarkadish wanted that temple to be, but Prabhupada was aiming that he wanted a temple in Mayapur, and if possible he wanted a temple in Vrindavan and in Bombay, because Bombay was the financial center of India. So he was thinking of 3 major temples in India. So in Calcutta, he sent devotees to Mayapur to get land, and at the same time he sent letters to all the temples that I want to start a World Sankirtan party here. This is phase 2 of ISKCON. And we want to preach all over India. And I want you to send men. So each temple, they sent men to join Prabhupada. And just at that time, Guru Das, because Guru Das, Jamuna, Shamsundar, Malati, Mukunda, and Janaki, they were all in UK, making the temple in with George Harrison. He was going to donate a big place. They had the Soho Street temple. And but Prabhupada wanted them to come. Someone had to stay in UK, so they chose that Mukund and Janaki would stay. And Guru Das, Jamuna, Shamsundar, and Malati, and Saraswati were going to come to India. And before they came here, Guru Das had to go to America. So while he was in America there, it was August, September of 1970, our temple president invited him down to Philadelphia. He spent a day. He did the fire sacrifice of marriage, our marriage and initiation. And after the initiation, because Prabhupada had sent me a letter from Tokyo initiating me. So he said, I'm leaving tonight. I'm going to the UK, back to England. And Prabhupada he wants me to go to India, and he wants me to go to Vrindavan and make a temple there. So why don't you come with us? You wind up your activities here, because we need devotees to come there to help with Prabhupada's new World Sankirtan party. So immediately that became my life's goal, to come and help Guru Das open the Vrindavan temple. So we wrote to Prabhupada, my husband wrote to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, first you have to train someone. You can't do anything hasty and haphazard. You train someone and then you can go. So the system was in those days, you had to go to New York City and you had to collect for your ticket there and you had to get your visa and then you go by plane to India. So we did that. We went to New York, but in New York there was Bhavananda, Rupanuga, a lot of wonderful devotees, and they also needed help. So they engaged us in Sankirtan there and press work, because I knew some Sanskrit, so we helped in the printing press. Prabhupada's books, they had to get printed, and we had printing press there that had come down from Boston. There was a lot going on at the Henry Street Temple in Brooklyn, New York at that time. So we got caught up there. And while there, Prabhupada wanted to have a nice big temple in New York. So we started to collect for that temple and look for property. And because I didn't know New York at all, I was just wander around with the Sankirtan party or look for good places to distribute books. And one day, I saw a big door with a lot of people going in and out. I was just wandering in Manhattan. I didn't know my way around. But I saw so many people were going in and out. What is this place? So I went into the door, and it was like paradise for a book distributor. There were thousands of people coming in, going out. It was the main bus terminal of New York City. It was called Port Authority. And that's also where Srila Prabhupada came. After he got off of the boat, he was taken to the Port Authority bus terminal and put on a bus to go to Butler, Pennsylvania. So you completely surrender to Krishna. So you're going to have to give your whole life to Krishna if you want Srimad Bhagavatam. So he said, well, he starts with, that's okay. We'll go to your house. You do. So he was completely caught off guard. He had never met anybody like that who wanted him to surrender his whole life to Krishna and, come to the temple, move in, become a devotee. It was just too much for him. So he said, well, I'm not ready for that. I said, that's okay. Rupa Goswami says you can give 50%. And I said, oh, or just to get rid of it, okay, I'll give you 50%, but it's at my house. So I said, that's no problem. We'll just go on the subway, we'll go to your house, we'll get the donation, I'll take it to the temple. You can come to the temple with me if you like. He said, no, I'll just give you the donation. So in New York subways, everywhere you go is underground subways, real rat life, underground life. So and I didn't know New York. All I knew was the temple and Port Authority. That was it. Finished. So he takes me on this long subway ride, and it's evening time by then. 6 o'clock in the evening. I have to get back to the temple by 8, and I'm wondering where he's taking me. So we get to this place. It's already dark. Huge apartment skyscrapers. He said to me, because he was so embarrassed, he said, if my family sees me with this Hare Krishna devotee, they're going to think I'm crazy. So he said to me, you just wait here at the street. I'll go up, I'll get the donation, and I'll come down. I said, okay. So I'm waiting at the street. I don't know where I am, nothing. I'm waiting there, and I'm thinking, boy, I got outsmarted. He left me here on the street corner. I have no idea where I am. I don't know how to get back to the temple. It's nighttime. I'm in the middle of New York City. For me, I was a country girl. I was afraid of New York City. Anyone would be. And I'm realizing, I don't know where he went. I don't know who he is. I don't know how to find him. I don't know how to go home. I'm stuck. So I just had to stand there at the street corner and pray to Krishna. So I'm praying to Krishna, and after about 20 minutes, he comes back and he gives me his donation. And I thanked him very much, and I told him, yeah, come back, we'll give you some books, I'll get you the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we started the relationship of the problems that he had in his life were keeping him from fully surrendering to Krishna. And he would come regularly and ask me questions at Port Authority, and I would try to help him. And then finally, I said to him one day, because he was constantly giving donations after that, he wanted to be a devotee, but because of material attachments, he was finding it very difficult. So finally I said to him, look, you've never been to the temple yet. You've helped so much for us to get a new temple. Why don't you just come and visit? Spend one night there. So he agreed. He came back to the temple. He went up to the brahmachari ashram, and poof, I never saw him again. He shaved up, he became a devotee, and that was the end of him. So another devotee was Chandramoli Swami.
Wow.
Now, Chandramoli Swami, he was more difficult to make a devotee than Devamrita Swami. He was from New Jersey. And he would come, I don't know why he would come to Port Authority, but he would come through there regularly. And I started to distribute books to him and preach to him. I knew he had to become a devotee because he would always come and ask for more books. So that meant he wanted to be a devotee, but he just didn't know how to become a devotee. So he would take the books home and read them very carefully. And then every day he would come to the bus terminal and ask me very, very detailed questions about everything that he read. I would spend about half an hour a day with him, answering all of his questions. So this went on maybe for about a month. And you know, as a book distributor, you want to meet as many people as possible, distribute the mercy to as many people as possible. And this was becoming a little tedious because he always had doubts and questions. So after a while, I said to him one day, I don't know the answer to your question, but because by that time we had about 10 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. Later, I'm in the Bhishma office, and I'm here typing at the computer, and a sannyasi walks into the office, and he said to me, Mataji, do you remember me? I mean, I've been through this. I didn't know what to say because, of course, I couldn't remember him. He was a sannyasi, and at that time he had hair down to his waist, red hair, you know, and he only wore jeans and shirt. So I said, from Port Authority? He said, yeah, Mataji. You remember, because he had a sister. So I would go to their house, I would cook for them, I would teach them how to make pakoras. I put everything I could into making him and his sister devotees. But then he disappeared after the police incident. So he started to remind me who he was. And then I remembered, because then I recognized him. And I was so upset with him. So you never even told me you became a devotee. They were going to have concerts in all of the colleges and universities on the East Coast. So rearranged to travel with them and cook for them, because they all knew the devotees from San Francisco, and this is the first time they were coming out to the East Coast. So we traveled. It was Prabhupada and a whole bunch of other, you know, maybe five devotees. So we would cook all day, scientist specialists in archaeology and anthropology. So that was that devotee. Later, because we gave him a $100 donation, is very big, we gave him a Bhagavad Gita, he read the Bhagavad Gita, he visited a temple, and then he became a devotee. So years and years later, he came here to the VIHE, and he said that was how he became a devotee, you know. So, like that. But meanwhile, our purpose of going to New York was to get to India. So we decided one night, you know, all right, we have enough money now. It's time for us to go help Guru Das in Vrindavan, because things were starting then. So we packed up our bags, and our flight is the next day, and we're just going out the front door of the temple, and the temple president and his wife come in. And they say, where are you going? Oh, we're leaving for India now. You know, we've been here, we've helped you, now we're leaving. They said, you can't go anywhere. You don't have permission to go to India. They took our bags, they kept all of our bags, and they said, you can't go to India. If you go to India, we're going to contact all the temples in India and tell them that you have to be sent back. You're not allowed to be in India. So that was very difficult for us. We didn't know that was going. That was very difficult for us. We didn't know that was going to happen, and we tried to, temple authorities. We tried to cooperate with them, and it was a long drama. I won't go into the details, but finally, a week later, one night, we just take our book bags and go to the airport and leave. And they couldn't do anything. They didn't inform anybody, nothing. But by that time, it was then July 1974, we came directly to Vrindavan to help Guru Das and Jamuna with the temple. So they're getting ready then for the grand opening that was supposed to happen, Janmashtami. So Jamuna was giving me different assignments, and Prabhupada was coming. And before Prabhupada came, Prabhupada's sister arrived, because whenever Prabhupada would be in India, she would come to where he was, or cook for him, try to serve him in some way. So the Matajis who were already here, they knew Pishima, and they knew Pishima liked to use mustard oil. She liked to do things that would sometimes upset Prabhupada, so they didn't want to be her servant. So since I was the newest devotee, they assigned me to be her servant, which was the greatest mercy for me. I got to live with her. I got to learn everything from her. We couldn't speak because I didn't know anything. He got very angry at Pishima. And he came to the kitchen. He said to her, Prabhupada, he doesn't eat it. Why do you make it for him every day? And she yelled back at him. She said, you don't know Srila Prabhupada. You don't understand the Guru. He can eat rocks if he wants to eat rocks. And she continued making it for him every day. So gradually, Prabhupada, because he was very ill, and this room wasn't built yet at that time, it was just a cement slab. So, and Prabhupada's rooms were just the first two rooms and two other rooms, the big room and two other rooms. So nothing was ready yet in those days. Guest house wasn't even built yet, nothing. There was just a big hole in the ground. Nothing was here. So in this room, we used to have 24-hour kirtan in this cement slab, 24-hour kirtan for Prabhupada so he could hear in his room. And Prabhupada decided that the weather in Mayapur would be better for him, because September time it gets cool and rains start and it's nice winds coming. So he decided to go to Mayapur. And Pishima was here. So naturally when Prabhupada left, Pishima wanted to go also wherever he was. So she decided she wanted to go back also to Calcutta. So they needed someone to accompany her. So she said, I had to accompany her. So at the same time, Dhananjaya, he had been sent here on a secret mission by Prabhupada to find land for us to make a Goshala and to get sweet water and to grow crops. Immediately Prabhupada wanted to start expanding. We were looking at the land across the road. We were getting offers for land all over Vrindavan. So Dhananjaya had to give a report to Prabhupada. So Dhananjaya gave me this secret letter to deliver to Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur. So then I had two reasons I had to go. I had to deliver Pishima to her family and then take this letter to Prabhupada. So we go in those days there was the Tufan Express. What was it, 2 nights, 3 days. It was quite a... I don't think they even have it anymore, the Tufan. It's still there, is it? Right. So Pishima, she was so wonderful. I learned how to travel by train from her. You get a tin, Amul spray tin, and in a tin you keep some muri. And tied to that tin, you have a little bottle of mustard oil. And anytime you're hungry, you just pour the mustard oil into the tin, and you shake it up, and you have murti. So this is the way, and then she insisted, you know, very Brahminical disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, every morning, Brahma Muhurta time, she would go into the train bathroom and take a full shower. So I learned from Pishima everything I know, I learned from her about how to live in India. So we get to Burdwan. And we get to Burdwan finally, we're in Bengal, and the train's coming to Calcutta, and suddenly halfway it breaks down completely. And we sit there for 6 hours. And then they announce to us, train's broken, you have to find your own way to Calcutta. So fortunately, Pradyumna and his wife, Arundhati, they were in the same train as us. So Pishima, Prabhupada was 76 and she was maybe 71. It was hard for her. She had arthritis in the hip. So we had to carry her across the tracks to a local train. And in that local train is where all the fish people, they have their fish baskets, you know. And we had to sit in that local train with all the fish baskets to get to Calcutta. And by the time we got to Calcutta, Pishima was so grateful that she insisted that we all come to her house. We came to her house and she fed us so much. Before she fed us, she showed us Prabhupada's, the little deities that her father had given them when Prabhupada was 6 years old, Radha Govinda. And Srila Prabhupada and she, they used to, across the street there was the Govindaji temple, and for hours they would watch what the pujaris were doing at the temple. And then they would come back to their house and they would imitate everything the pujaris were doing to these. And this is how Prabhupada and his sister grew up, worshipping these little deities. So she took us upstairs to see the deities, and then she fed us. And then she showed us in her house. She had 9 children. They were all grown up. I think it was 9 sons even. And each son lived in a different room in the house with their family. A real HUF, Hindu United family. Like the whole family was in one house. Each mini family was in one room. And she was in charge of everything. So, and then she showed us where she and her husband lived. Her husband had died by then. His name was Rasa Bihari. And she showed us the calendar with Rasa Bihari's name, you know. And so we got to know all of her family. And one of her sons was especially devoted. His name was Chandra Babu. And he was an optician. My father was also an optician, so we immediately clicked. You know, he took me to his shop and we were all looking at the eyeglasses. But here in India, the opticians and the watchmakers, they combine them together, right? So they took me to the shop and they gave me a wristwatch for bringing Pishima back home. And it was just a beautiful family affair. And then the 3 of us decided it's time for us to go to Mayapur because otherwise we would die of overeating, you know. So we get in the, Sheldon station, we take the local train. They wouldn't let us sit down. They had reserved all the seats for their friends, you know. We had to stand the whole way to Mayapur. So we get to Navadvip, right? And we have to it takes you to Navadvip, no? Krishnanagar. It was dark, it was pitch black, no electricity. Somehow we make it to Mayapur. I don't know how we got there. We got there, pitch black. And 9 o'clock at night, and Shrutakirti's the servant of Prabhupada. Now Shrutakirti, he had joined at the Philadelphia temple. He said the first time he walked in the temple, he sees this girl lying down flat on the floor ringing a bell. And he couldn't, he said it was me. I was doing the offering, because in those days we didn't know women aren't supposed to lie flat. We just did what everybody else did, you know. So, so I was ringing the bell, making the offering to Lord Jagannath, and so that was his first meeting with the devotees, watching me ring the bell on the floor. So he knew me from there. So we immediately had a bond. So, and then also from serving here, serving Pishima. So, and I've told this story 100,000 times. Tell me, and if nobody has heard this story before, raise your hand, otherwise I won't tell the story. Okay. You haven't heard the story before? Okay, then I'll tell the story. So, 9 o'clock at night, we just, this long ride from Vrindavan, we reach Mayapur, and then Shruti Kirti comes to me with a candle. He says, you have to be very careful. Tomorrow Prabhupada's going to call you to talk to you, because the GBC found out that you're here, and they want Prabhupada to ask you to go back to America to collect for Mayapur and Vrindavan. So I had all night to think about what to say to Prabhupada when he asked me that. He gave me a warning. So the next morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, Shruti Kirti comes down. He says, Prabhupada wants to speak to you. So we go up to his room, and on one side of the room were 6 sannyasis in GBC, and on the other side was myself and my husband. And Prabhupada looks at me and he says, first, when did you come? I gave him some sweet, like that. Then he gets down to the serious business. He says, they want you to go collect for Mayapur and Vrindavan. And I was ready for that. I said to them, I said to Srila Prabhupada and the sannyasis in GBC sitting there, I said, if they want me to collect, then let me learn the way Giriraj collects. Because Giriraj, who was a brahmachari at that time, he was world famous for his preaching techniques in Bombay. How he was able to collect, he would go to a person, of course Bombay is quite different from Vrindavan and the rest of the world, but he was able to get huge donations. And he had his technique of doing that, and I wanted to learn that. I told Prabhupada that it's too unintelligent the way I collect. I stand on a street corner, I'll get $1 from this person, this person, this person. I want to learn how to go to one person and get a donation of 1 lakh rupees. So Prabhupada said, that's, he said, he looked over at the sannyasis and the GBCs, and he said to them, he said, force does not work. You cannot force. He said, that is the way of, and then he mentioned the GBC who tried to imprison us in the New York temple. So when Prabhupada said that, I could understand that Prabhupada already knew everything about what was going on in the New York temple. So then, when he told them that force does not work, you cannot force, then he turned to me and he said, what is your idea? So I had absolutely no idea. I just wanted to come here and help Guru Das and Jamuna open the temple. The temple wasn't ready yet. And within a split second, I thought, well, if I tell Prabhupada I want to come back to Vrindavan now, set up a reception, start book distribution here, then they'll be able to say, well, there's 8 months, let her go let her go collect for 8 months. I said, I can't say that. So then I poured out my heart to Prabhupada, and I told Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, wherever I go, as soon as I open up one of your books, a whole crowd of people come, because your books are the most beautiful books in the world. So what I really want to do is, I want to put your books in all the schools and the libraries in India. So Prabhupada loved that idea. He lit up and he put up his finger and he said, wherever she goes, she must distribute my books. And then he called Brahmananda. Brahmananda was his secretary. And he told us that the first shipment of books had just come to Bombay. The books were still in the docks, on the boats. And he wanted us to go immediately to Bombay and start this library program, like Satsvarup Maharaj was doing in America. And he was coming there and he would train us how to distribute books here. So that was 9:30 in the morning. Within 1 hour, Prabhupada had arranged for us a taxi to go to Calcutta and tickets for Bombay. So he was so anxious to get this book distribution working. So he sent us immediately to Bombay. Now, while we were sitting with Prabhupada, Gopal Krishna, at the time he was Adhikari, he had just arrived from New York. And then I understood how Prabhupada had heard everything about New York. Because Gopal Krishna at that time was serving in New York, and he came to inform Prabhupada about the irregularities that were going on in the New York temple. So then Gopal Krishna asked Prabhupada that, can I write a letter about what's happening in New York temple? And Prabhupada said, yes, you can, she should write the letter. Prabhupada already understood everything. So anyway, that was another assignment, to write the letter. And then after 15 days, Prabhupada sent a letter to Giri. And then after 15 days, Prabhupada came here and he started to train us how to distribute books here in India. And he had the most perfect technique. I had never heard of anything like it. He knew exactly how to sell full sets of books, Srila Prabhupada. He told us each day what to say, where to go. And at that time we didn't know what Prabhupada's life was before he went to America. We had no idea. So I was wondering all along, how does Prabhupada know all these people, know all these universities, know how to do all this book distribution? I was just amazed what Prabhupada was teaching us. And then one day he sent us to a place called Elphinstone College. He told us how to get there. We got off at the Elphinstone stop in Bombay, right? Anyone here's from Bombay? You're from Bombay, right? Elphinstone, yes. We got off. We did what Prabhupada told us to do. And finally we met the librarian. And I showed her the books. I said, these books have just arrived from America, Srimad Bhagavatam, and I told her all the things that Prabhupada told us to say. And she said to us, well, we already have these books in our library. And I said, well, that's impossible. The books have just come from America. They just came off of the ship. She said, no, I'll show you the books. So she took us into the library. She took us to a case like this made out of cedar wood. She unlocked it, and there, right in the case, were Srila Prabhupada's original 3 Srimad Bhagavatams. So then I realized that this is how Prabhupada knew everything about Bombay. He personally had done all of this and placed his original 3 Srimad Bhagavatams in all of these places where he was sending us. And we were just exactly following in his footsteps. And then I realized that Srila Prabhupada, he had done all of this completely alone. He had no temples, no disciples. All he had was his books. And he was doing all of the writing, the printing, the distributing, everything completely alone. And here we were, of course, Bombay Temple at that time was a shack, but still, we had the Bombay Temple, we had devotees, we had prasadam, we had association, we had Radharasa Bihari there. And we had so much facility, whereas Prabhupada had nothing. And he did everything by himself. So then I became so inspired by Srila Prabhupada's example. that I told my husband, I said, now we're going to do what Prabhupada wants us to do. We're going to start preaching all over India. We're going to go now. So we started making all these plans for where we were going to go next. We went to Kurukshetra, big conference there, Sanskrit, All India Sanskrit Conference. We set up a book table. From there we got invitations all over India. We started traveling from university to university, putting books in we went to Ahmedabad, Baroda, Dwarka, everywhere, all over Gujarat, Rajasthan, Delhi, every place. And then we came back and we showed Prabhupada our receipt book, with all the orders. He looked through, he was so happy, seeing all these universities, they had all gotten books, and these professors had ordered the books. He was so happy. And then we started to go down south. And as we traveled more and more, we went to Andhra, then we went to Orissa, and finally we met Prabhupada again in Calcutta. Prabhupada was there, by this time it was 1975, and it was time for the grand opening of this temple. So Prabhupada wanted to know how our preaching was going. So we went to see Srila Prabhupada, and because we had gone to Jagannath Puri, because I don't know if it's still there, I haven't been there since then, but right across from the temple there used to be a big library. Is it still there in Jagannath Puri? No. So when we went to Jagannath Puri, we went to that library, we gave them Prabhupada's books. It was right in front of the Jagannath temple. And I really wanted to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. So first we tried walking in. Of course they stopped us. Then one panda, I'll try my level best, you just give me a donation, that didn't work. Then finally we went to the Shankaracharya, who was in charge of the whole temple. And we had a personal interview with him, because there were no foreigners in India in those days. And nobody knew really what ISKCON was. We were so new. So he greeted us very graciously. He was sick. He was in his bed. We were sitting in his room with him. And I'm looking around his room, and on his top shelf he has these big Radha Krishna deities, right? So you could take darshan of them. I was amazed. So we explained to him, we've surrendered everything, we're Vaishnavas, we've come here to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. He explained he's completely incapable of giving us darshan. I'm so sorry, like that. So, but from my Sankirtan days, I wasn't going to give up. So, because I'm short and wear these simple saris, I decided, okay, I'm just going to go on. I said to my husband, okay, you do whatever you want. I'm going for darshan. So I walked to the temple, my heart beating, and just as I'm getting to the gate, a whole group of Bengali pilgrims arrive. And they look just like me, I look like them, short, So I grab onto one of the old lady's saris, and I cover up, and I go into the temple with her. And the guards are looking, they look at everybody to make sure nobody gets in, but it was dark, and I fit right in with them. So I go into the temple, but when they go into the temple, they first go visit all the demigods and Lord Nrsimha first. I got as far as Lord Nrsimhadev, and I realized I'm not going to make it beyond Lord Nrsimhadev. I prayed in Lord Nrsimhadev, let me just go see Lord Jagannath, and that's enough, So they go their way, and I go right into what I thought was the temple. I go in the temple, and I see the Garuda Stamba. I offer my obeisances. I see from a distance Lord Jagannath. There's so many gates. And I don't know if it's still like that now. There's still gates, are there? Yeah, how many gates? 7 gates? 3 gates? 3 gates, okay. I see all these gates, and how am I going to get through the gates? So when I pick my head up after offering my obeisances, there's a woman sitting right next to me, and she was from our 2 rupee dharamshala where we were staying. And she had white leprosy all over her body. And she recognized me, and I recognized her, and she was so happy to see me. And because it's white leprosy, and I was all covered up, and only my hands were visible, you know, and I had my whole body covered, she grabbed my hand, she dragged me through all of the 3 gates, right up to Lord Jagannath, you know. And because of the way she looked, with the black and the white, you know, nobody even imagined how horrible I must look, because I was all covered up, you know. So Lord Jagannath just arranged, I just go right up and take darshan of him, and then I ruined it. I offered my obeisances and I put my arms up so everybody saw me. So then they very politely escorted me out of the temple. But I got darshan of Lord Jagannath. And then the next day, I wanted to go into the Gundicha temple. Gundicha temple is also off limit for the foreigners. I never saw anything like it. I went there and they welcomed me. They said, yes, go right in. You know? I went in and I spent the whole day in the Gundicha temple. I studied all of because Lord Jagannath wasn't there then. So I got to study all. They leave everything exactly as it is. You know, all the pots are there, all the stove, the chulas are there, the ashes are still there, the altar is still there. Everything is just exactly as Lord Jagannath was there. Lord Jagannath's not there. So the people come and they put their hands on the altar where Jagannath is, they put all the dust, you know. I could really understand how Lord Chaitanya had needed to clean Gundicha Mandir when I saw the temple. And the gardens, and all of the different Lakshmi temples, got everything, got to see that day. So before we were leaving Jagannath Puri, I went to the bazaars and I looked for the picture as exactly as much as possible that Lord Jagannath looked like in the temple to bring to Srila Prabhupada. So I brought that picture to Srila Prabhupada there. Let's see, at that time, first we were in Calcutta. And Calcutta, we all know, 3 Albert Road is very small. Very few devotees can stay there. So all the devotees were arriving and nobody was allowed to stay. They had to go right on to Mayapur. But Pishima wanted me to stay, to help her. So I got to stay and help with the cooking and clean Prabhupada's rooms and, you know, do all the things for this. So I got to serve Prabhupada again there. And then we all went in caravan with Srila Prabhupada to Mayapur, 1975. There were 6 cars, and Prabhupada was in the front car, and we were in the last car. And right before our car was a car of sannyasis. And one of the sannyasis was an American. His name was Pancha Devita Swami. And he didn't like the way the driver was driving. So he decided he would drive. But the driver refused to sit in the car with him. So he made the driver lie on the back of the outside, the hood of the car, you know, the diggy. And the driver was hanging onto the diggy while Pancha Devita was driving. And in America, we drive on the, I can't remember which is which, but just the opposite. So the brains work differently. So here we're on this narrow road going we passed Dum Dum, we're on the road going to Mayapur, and there's a big lorry coming. So Pancha Devita, being American, he swerves over to this side, because that's what Americans would do. And the lorry, he also swerves over to that side. And they both swerve over off of the road, driving into a field. And the driver's hanging on to the back of the diggy as the lorry and the car are going into the field together. So that was the end of the caravan. Prabhupada stopped the caravan, you know, what happened, where's everybody? And we're watching it all from behind, you know, because we're the last car. So, so then, Prabhupada, he had to stop, wait for all of us. And then the caravan goes on, following Prabhupada in the fields. So I have to grab Pishima, No, Pishima, you can't go with Prabhupada. So then she understood, she sat and waited for Prabhupada. So then it was a Kadasi. Prabhupada arrives on a Kadasi, right? Because then comes Gaur Purnima. So they serve Prabhupada this nice Ekadasi prasadam. I had stayed up the whole night to cook this Ekadasi prasadam for Prabhupada. And he liked one preparation very much. So Gargamuni, he says, yeah, all right, Prabhupada likes this. So he went like that to me, thumbs up. So then we reach Mayapur, and then the whole festival starts, of course. But Prabhupada called us. We went to see Prabhupada. He wanted to know how the preaching was going, because he had seen in Bombay, and then he knew that we had gone to the south. So my husband said that, well, wherever we went, she got sick, so I don't want to do this anymore. We want to stop the program. So, and I just got angry. I said, no, he's just procrastinating. I want to still do it. Anyway, Prabhupada could understand it wasn't working out so well. So, and my husband wanted to go back to America. He wanted to do other service. So I told him, all right, you do whatever you want. I'm going to, Prabhupada gave me this order. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to continue to do the book distribution, because that's what Prabhupada told us to do. So he left. I stayed. And then Prabhupada, because it was the festival time. Oh, it's already 7 o'clock. I'm so sorry. Forgive. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.